Welcome, everybody, to the channel. I got Gage Pearson. He is a state finalist for the state of Texas, and we're just going to be talking some college football today. So,
right side, up the middle, first down, stiff arms, hop, skips at the 40. Mayfield, the fade to the corner to Shepard. He got it.
Mixon, touchdown.
Marquise Brown behind the defense for an Oklahoma touchdown.
5, Murray lofts one up for Campbell.
Oh my gosh.
What a catch!
Hurts, wide open, CD in space, CD Lamb still running, hits a corner, CD
Moved. Purdy, can he rescue this? Purdy lofts it up. Jump ball, and it is intercepted.
up, throws. Oh, what an interception! Oh my gosh, DJ Graham, give me that, Odell.
Gage, how you doing?
Doing good, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We've had a lot of really good news today as far as OU goes. We're not spoiled with a recruiting class like you guys, but we're making moves.
Well, you've managed to win more games than we have recently, so be happy about that.
I know. Hey, man, SEC's tough. All
Yeah,
right.
that's no joke. It's difficult, but going into Baton Rouge and getting slapped around like that by an inferior opponent.
Hey, at least you
no
didn't
good.
fly to Atlanta to lose to LSU.
Okay, well, you actually like played the greatest college football team of all time. So,
Y'all played them too.
we did. They beat us 50-7. So, I mean, Joe Burrow came running out there with the Burrow name on the back of his jersey, the Burreaux, like Cajun spelling. There was no chance, especially after the year before when they thought they got, screwed in College Station. I remember seeing that press conference like the week going into the game, and they're asking Joe Burrow. He's just sitting there, sunglasses on, sipping a water bottle. They're asking him about last year, and he was like, "We're gonna settle the score this year." And I was like, "Oh yeah, we're toast."
Yeah, y'all are done.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
It's crazy with all these like transfers that just transfer and they go somewhere and they make a big wave. Like for us, it was
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts and Kyler. Baker had a good 3 years with us, so like he was a transfer, but like it's hard to consider him like a transfer.
Kyler Murray's an Aggie. What are you talking about?
No, Kyler Murray was an OU boy. He won the Heisman for us. Y'all didn't let him play.
I like to mess with you about that.
We had a battle of Kyler Murray and Austin Kendall.
Yeah, I think that Kyler Murray made the best decision for him for sure.
I do too.
I don't know if he would have had the same level of success at A&M. Just playing in the SEC week after week after week. I could be completely wrong, but I mean he's tearing up the NFL right now, so I may be dead wrong, but it's just it's a different game. You know it as well as everybody. When you go and play down south in the SEC, it's a little different.
It's different for sure. What is your opinion on the new transfer portal? Do you think we should still have players sit out a year? Whether you transfer if you're injured or not, you think we should stay out and sit a year? Because Baker had to sit a year. The only reason he got a 5th year was because they enacted NIL on the rule.
Yeah, no, I don't think that we should make players sit out next year. That I've liked the trans portal era for the most part. It can be hurtful to the game and to student athletes in some regard. Now, you've got some players that like to enter the transfer portal and they'll go somewhere else, and it turns out to be a terrible decision to them and terrible decision for them. And you may just have to, instead of enacting some legislation on that, you may just have to let these kids learn the hard way. You may have to let some kids. We've only been in this for 4 or 5 years, this trans portal era thing. There may just have to be some kids, go to a different place and really have to fall flat on their face so that there's a precedent in the future where kids can look up and see that and see, the grass may not always be greener on the other side. But obviously you've seen a lot of great things come from it. Like y'all got Kyler Murray from the transfer portal. I believe that was going on. No, he may have actually had to sit out a year.
He sat out a year. He sat behind Baker.
Was that was that's because he sat behind Baker, but he was eligible to play. Okay, yeah, you're right. I think that was right around the beginning of the transfer portal.
I mean, one of the really good ones for us, at least, was Charleston Rambo. Like, He
Yeah.
did really good when he was the number 2 to CD. But
Mhm.
he just like, you could tell he wasn't clicking with Lincoln's offense. Goes to Miami and sets records his first year
Yeah.
there.
I think like the standard when you look at the transfer portals, obviously like Joe Burrow going to LSU from Ohio State, how great of a pickup that was. And obviously, you know, that's not gonna happen every time. Those are gonna be the outliers, the rare exceptions. And that's obviously not gonna be what you see time after time after time. You're gonna just see, you know, maybe you'll see players go to a new home, which I think what we've seen a lot is players go to a new school and they do really well. For instance, I'm forgetting his name, but that DB that started for Clemson last year and
Yeah.
transferred to Georgia, he just won a national championship. You know, he was the perfect fit for him. And it was right down the road, you know, just a one state south. But the thing that is interesting about the transfer portal is it's kind of like shrank the country in some regard because before we had the transfer portal and you know you had to sit out a year, you had to think twice if you were like leaving A&M and going to, you know, say Washington, you know, you had to
Yeah.
think twice about it. But now, especially with NIL, that has changed that a lot. You know, you can a player can go from College Station to Seattle, Washington, and they can, you know, if they're a high enough rated prospect, they can sign some of these NIL deals, and they can really just allocate those funds to allow their family to travel when they wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to otherwise. So you know, in the past, you had a bunch of kids that were wanting to stay closer to home, or maybe they moved farther away out of high school and then they wanted to transfer closer to home. I think that happened even more often, but it's shrank the country a lot more. It's allowed kids to, you know, have some freedom to choose what they want to do, and I think that that's one of the positives about the transfer portal and the NIL that we've seen so far.
I love the fact of the NIL where you can, you know, you can make money and stuff like that, because in my opinion, if you're making your university all that money, you should at least get a piece of the pie. So
Well, yeah, it's
it's hard
ridiculous
seeing
when
these
you
18-year-old kids making millions, you know, like
yeah. Well, it's just still such a foreign concept to all of us, you know, and just because like a couple years ago, I mean, if I would have gone and played out of high school, you know, I wasn't signing any NIL deal, you know, and that was
yeah,
2018. It was 2018. You know, it hasn't been long ago. But this is, I think they signed the NIL legislation last summer. You know, this
yeah,
is we're not even a year into it yet. So you had like Bryce Young signing like $1 million contract. I think Spencer Rattler signed a real big one with somebody in Norman last year.
he signed a dealership, car dealership. They gave him 2 cards and some cash.
Somebody ended up losing a lot of money in that deal.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is all completely new, and you know, I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but you know, you're saying you're glad that players are finally getting a piece of the pie. You know, this is college football is $1 billion industry.
yeah,
You know,
it's a business.
billion plus, and no, I don't want to see. I want it to stay college football. You know, I want it to kind of somewhat remain an amateur sport,
Yeah,
and I think that there may be ways we can do that. You know, right now it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. You know, there's something new happening all the time. But for the most part, you know, a lot of these players aren't bringing in millions of dollars. You know, they're making money where they can, you know, have a nice car. If they're not, you know, most of the scholarship players are living in good housing, so that's already taken care of. But like I was saying earlier, they can use that money to bring their family to games if they live
right.
further away.
Well, that
So
was the thing,
that's
is
one of
that like the thing
that's
with,
one of the main things that I think of whenever I think about NIL is that
yeah,
that's what I was talking about, how it shrinks the country. It was like now you can afford to play truly wherever you want
right,
and still have your family come and visit you. You don't have to like be away from home for you know
right.
years, months on end. So that's one good thing about it. I think that some people like to blow it out of proportion and think that, you know, before long it's going to be like the NFL.
That's
And
what
I
it
don't think
seems
that
like,
that's
almost, is like
yeah,
a amateur free agency. Like,
yeah.
I
Well,
think
the
it came
transfer
out that,
portal
what
has
was it?
made it free agency to some extent.
I think it came out that 1,400 kids entered the transfer portal this past year.
And
It's
just
just,
FBS.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I saw a tweet the other day, somebody was arguing that like JUCOs and stuff no longer matter because it's like, like the smaller, like Jackson
Well,
State.
they've kind of made like a de facto farm system in college
See,
football.
it's just,
And
I just don't see it, man, because you get Dion who goes out and gets the number 2 player in the country and one of the another top cornerback in the country. Like,
yeah, but do you really think that Dion's going to be at Jackson State for 4 years while Travis Hunter's there?
no.
No, that's see what I'm saying? He's not. He's going to leave that FCS school. He's going to get a Power 5 job, and he's going to take those recruits with him.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like a farm system.
Hopefully he just doesn't do it like Lincoln did.
There's a 0% chance, 0% chance that Travis Hunter graduates from Jackson State University.
I'd agree with you on that one.
I promise you, he will not graduate from there. Now, if Dion stayed, even if Dion stayed there for 4 years, I don't think he would. I think he'll go somewhere else and play, and which, in my opinion, kind of defeats the whole premise of going to Jackson State in the first place, because he wants to play under Dion. He's one of the greatest DBs of all time, but he's going to find out that he's not that he's not, becoming a better player, but that he's just not going to face the competition that he would.
That he needs to. Yeah.
That he needs to face to be ready to play in the NFL. And not to say that there's not FCS players that do come from the NFL, but I mean, look at the numbers. Look at the guys that come out of Power 5 conferences versus FCS schools.
Not only that, but look at the people that started at lower schools, transferred to a Power 5 and made it to the NFL.
And that's what the transfer portal has made possible. And some of these guys, like for instance, I have a buddy that plays at Incarnate Word. He was the backup quarterback for Incarnate Word last year. The starter had an incredible season, and he was ranked in the top 10 for transfer portal quarterbacks. Washington State just picked him up.
Wow!
So he went from the FCS to the Pac-12 in an off season, or basically pretty much overnight. He gets an offer from Washington State. Their Incarnate Word's head coach was the guy that coached at Tech. I'm blanking. You remember his name?
No.
I
don't care about Tech football. I just whoop their ass and that's it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm blanking right now. But he coached. He was the OC at Tech for a few years under Cliff Kingsbury. Took the job at Incarnate Word. Stayed there for a few years, and he actually did really well there. And he was just hired as Washington State's offensive coordinator. So there you go again. I mean, the head coach at Incarnate Word just takes his quarterback up to Pullman, and they're going to be running it again together next year.
Well, you're seeing it in Norman. I bet Caleb goes to USC.
It's a possibility.
Follow Mr. Lincoln.
Unless you follow the old girlfriend theory, and then he's headed to Chapel Hill.
No, I don't follow that theory at all.
I mean, it's been pretty accurate so far. AJ Martinez, his girlfriend plays soccer at K-State. He went there. It seems to be pretty accurate.
I mean, I would love to see him.
It was Keaton Slovis went from USC to Pitt.
Yeah, I would love to see him go somewhere else other than USC, just because it's like Caleb will forever be etched in Sooner history as a legend just because of what he did at the Texas game. I mean, we just shouldn't have won that game. He came out as a young kid and won it. But whatever team he goes to, I hope his personal stats are great, but I hope the team is horrible, especially if it's USC. If it's USC, I hope they lose every game.
The Trojans.
Do what?
You're not a big fan of the Trojans, are you?
No, not at all.
I think that there's a possibility that you just upgraded at head coach. I really do.
I think so. I think we're okay.
I don't think that's a hot take at all. I really don't.
The Sooner Nation, as you can tell by his wonderful A&M hoodie, Gage is currently going to College Station, enrolled at A&M. And I got to ask, man, how you feeling about that recruiting class and what you're going to be next year?
I feel great about it. I don't know what kind of benefits we're going to reap from it this next year in 2022. But man, we got to see something soon. Last year we had a great season, going 9-1, in the COVID year, having to overcome a lot as a team. I didn't have high expectations for last year really at all, but it was a great job done by, Jimbo Fisher and the coaching staff. And I mean, we had a 4-year starter at quarterback, and while I'm not super high Kellen Mond, he did have 4 years of experience, and he was above average. He did
Yeah,
well.
but he won you one of the greatest college football games to ever live.
No, the LSU game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, like I said, we had a great year 2020. This year, a lot of what ifs. Haynes King goes down in the second quarter against Colorado. Second quarter of the second game, he played like total of 4 quarters of football. I don't think he played at the end of the game against Kent State, and then he got hurt against Colorado, so he missed the whole season, and it's kind of makes you wonder what would have happened if he would have played.
Yeah.
Not to knock Zach Calzada, he just somehow caused lightning to strike in College Station that night and took down Alabama and played the game of his life. And kind of like Caleb Williams against Texas, he'll always be etched into A&M history for that one game.
Yeah.
And I like Zach. He's a solid quarterback, and I hope he has success at Auburn, except for whenever we run into him.
Speaking of Zach Calzada, what's your reaction of him going to Auburn?
I don't know exactly how I feel about it. I think he has a really good chance to start with Bo Nix going to Oregon, and as far as I know, just TJ Finley being there to stand in his way. I think that Zach ought to be able to win that job fairly easily, and will be the starting quarterback for Auburn
Bo Nix
next
could
year.
be their quarterback, Zach Calzada's got it in the bag.
Why you say that?
Man, you know me, man. I'm not a big fan of Bo.
Bo is he can just there's times where he's the best player on the field, and then there's time where he's the worst player on the field.
Yeah.
He's just had consistency issues. I think a lot of the talent is there. I think he struggled in Gus Malzahn's offense, and I think that he, took some lumps in Brian Harson's offense this year. And, maybe that's just a mental thing. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on how smart the guy is. I have no idea. But it's like the talent and the potential is there. It's just being consistent. It's
Right.
making some of the same boneheaded mistakes time after time, which is a lot similar to what Kellen Mond did. Let me tell you that
Yeah.
much. Kellen Mond had probably more ability than Bo Nix, I would say. As a passer, Bo Nix is a lot better runner, a dual threat guy than Kellen Mond was. Kellen could run, but Bo Nix is fast. That guy
He
can
is.
run. And Kellen Mond he liked to make a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. Now I will say he cut down on those a lot in his senior season, and what happened? We won 9 games and would have been 10 if Ole Miss didn't run away from us. So
that Ole Miss game was tough, man.
What, this year?
No, both. All of the above. The last few Ole Miss games y'all have had has been a little rough.
This is the first year they beat us in 4 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the first time Jimbo's lost to Ole Miss.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We sure can't lose to Mississippi State, though. Let me tell you.
I know. You can't. Yeah, you can't lose to Mississippi State at home.
That's frustrating. Losing to them drives me crazy because they're just. We should never lose to Mississippi State.
No,
we should. We should never.
Just like
lose to
OU should never
State.
be down 10-0 against Kansas and Lawrence.
Well, and it's like y'all should never lose to Kansas State.
Right.
I mean, this is not prime Bill Snyder. I mean,
no.
All the respect in the world to. I think Kansas State has a good program. I think they have a good coach, but
he's not Bill.
They should not be beating Oklahoma.
No, they shouldn't. We lost to them 2 years in a row. It's one of the most frustrating times of being an OU fan was just, you accept the Iowa State losses because they're building a hell of a program up there.
They are. They're tough.
But
they're tough out.
But to lose at home to Iowa State, man, that was tough. That was a tough loss.
How many years
we
ago
lost
was that, man?
Back-to-back games that year for the first time in a long, long time.
Was that 2020 or 2019?
It was 2020.
2020? Yeah, that's right, because 2019 y'all went to the playoff, which went well.
We don't have to talk about that game.
Who was it? Y'all lost. Yeah, y'all lost to Kansas State and Iowa State back to back in 2020. But I mean, after that, y'all really turned it on.
Oh,
Y'all
we played amazing after the 2 losses.
absolutely boat raced Florida. I mean, say what you want about Florida having a bunch of opt-outs and stuff like that. I mean, y'all still ran them out of the stadium. So
It was
I think
that was a
was
fun game.
I think that was the start of the downfall of the Dan Mullen era. And
It's tough because a lot of people are saying, well, Kyle didn't have anybody to throw to. It's like, well, Kyle Trask was a Heisman favorite.
Yeah.
You don't walk
Heisman
out there and
finalist,
throw 3 interceptions as the Heisman favorite. You're not winning a game. I don't care who you have if your quarterback throws 3 interceptions. So I don't know, bro. I keep trying to think about, as we're talking, like teams that are just really gonna like blow up next year. You got your Alabama. Georgia's gonna be right up there. I think Michigan's gonna have a strong year, even though they're losing a lot. I think they're gonna be okay. Ohio State. I'd have to go. I expect SMU to have a great year.
Well, yeah, but they're not going to threaten nationally. I mean, they're not going to. I don't see a scenario where they pull off a Cincinnati top season, especially with a new head coach. They lost some pieces on offense too. But I think Cincinnati will still be up there, whether they make the playoff again. I don't know. More than likely, I would say no. But as far as the SEC goes, I think that Arkansas has the potential to make some noise. Mississippi State's bringing back Will Rogers, which those 2 games scare me because we got to have those. We can't afford to lose to Arkansas or Mississippi State, which is exactly what happened this year. And then we turned around and beat Alabama. But man, it's going to be really tough from here on out. The SEC has been tough for a long time, but it keeps getting tougher and it keeps getting tougher. And say what you want about the frickin' bowl season, I don't care. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at the job Sam Pittman did at Arkansas this year. How many games did you think Arkansas would win this year?
They were not on my list. That's for sure.
Did you think they would win 9?
No.
Did you think they'd beat A&M? Did you think
after the year they had before, I did not think they'd be bowl eligible.
After the last 6 seasons they've had.
Yeah.
Did you think that they'd beat A&M, beat Alabama, or not only beat A&M, take Alabama to the wire? I mean,
took Alabama to the wire and they beat A&M on all sides of the ball.
Yes, they did. I don't want to get into that game. That was an extremely frustrating day, but we couldn't do anything. The thing that frustrated me the most is Spiller takes one like 70 yards to the house and then doesn't touch the ball the rest of the game.
Yeah,
that's play calling. I mean, what are you doing? I didn't understand that at all. But our defense did everything they could to keep us in that game, and we could not move the ball. And that was Calzada's first conference start, and I think he was probably pretty rattled. I doubt that anybody inside the program would say he was rattled, but you could see it live on TV that's what was going on. And I think the team really struggled to adjust to the quarterback change too. I think maybe it hurt us a little bit mentally on offense because it was different. Maybe we didn't feel as versatile. Maybe we didn't feel as dangerous. It changed the way we had to call a lot of the plays and really just changed the function of the offense. But he managed to, kind of come along throughout the year, and he had some great moments throughout the year, like, the Alabama game. And there were some great stretches he had throughout there. The dude has a rocket straight up.
Yeah, he does.
He can flat sling it with the best of them. He has some accuracy issues every now and then, or he puts the ball in the wrong place every now and then, throws it somewhere he shouldn't. And, I think that will come with experience. He did get a little bit better and get more consistent as the season went down the stretch. So I expect him to, finish out his college career on a solid note. I just hope he doesn't take us down next year.
Yeah, that'd be payback for sure.
I wouldn't enjoy that.
So Gage, you went to Texas Tech for a couple of years before you transferred to A&M. So I'm sure you've heard the name Kobe McKenzie.
I have.
What do you think he's going to bring to OU, and just on a national stage, where do you think he'll be? And what's your reaction of a Lubbock boy going to Norman?
I think him going to OU has as much to do with Matt Wells as it does Oklahoma. I think that with him being in high school the whole time that Matt Wells was the head coach and not really making any progress at all as a program for 3 years had a lot to do with him leaving. I don't know exactly what to expect from the new coach, but I like a lot of what he says, and there's a lot of promising things coming out of Lubbock right now. They've started to recruit better already, and they ended the season on a really good stretch. They took Baylor all the way down to the wire, beat Iowa State, beat the crap out of Mississippi State. So I think that there's a lot of positive feelings around the program in Lubbock right now. But as far as Kobe McKenzie, I think it just had a lot to do with Matt Wells and probably Kobe seeing the direction of the program and it just not looking very intriguing to him or very inviting, I guess. It didn't.
I have
didn't
to
really,
agree.
Didn't really spark much interest to him. And there's not a whole lot of 4 or 5 star players that come out of the Lubbock area. And really West Texas in general. So whenever you're a school like Texas Tech that, is arguably the number 3 team in the state, just based off of prestige, you've got to keep those kids at home. So whenever you've got a kid of his caliber growing up in your backyard, you can't let him leave. You're already scratching and clawing as it is just to keep your head above water in the recruiting game against Oklahoma and Texas and now Iowa State and Baylor's getting up there with Dave Aranda and outside of your conference, A&M is obviously recruiting Texas as well as anybody, recruiting it very hard. You've got LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia coming into Texas. So it's that's something that they really have to capitalize on as a program. Whenever you got those kids from West Texas that are super talented, you need to keep them at home.
Yeah, it's just I was really surprised when he announced his commitment because just being in OU Twitter and involved, I kind of knew a couple of days before of his commitment, but I was like, there's no way we get a 4-star in West Texas.
It doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. Being out there and seeing the football program firsthand and the direction it's really gone, ever since Cliff was fired. It was not good. Those 3 years of Matt Wells were not good. And I think Cliff might have had a solid chance to keep him. And, I said whenever we fired Cliff that it was the wrong decision. It looks like I may have turned out to be right. He's killing it for the Cardinals right now. And I know it's a different game. He doesn't have to recruit. He was basically just, given Kyler Murray on a silver platter and said, go tear up the league. And the Texans just threw Deshaun Watson to him. And he's done a great job. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I do think that he was fired too early at Tech. At the time he was the youngest head coach ever hired.
He was
when he was hired at Texas Tech.
He was next to Lincoln. I'm pretty sure.
I think he needed more time. He basically just got thrown into that job in Lubbock when Manziel won the Heisman down here. Cliff was the OC down here and had a phenomenal year back in 2012. And we go to Tuscaloosa, win. Johnny wins the Heisman. Then we beat the living breaks off of y'all in Jerry World. So, Johnny got Cliff that job essentially. And I think we pulled the trigger on him way too soon. Texas Tech, that is.
It's honestly really tough because you could tell he had flashes at Tech to where he was just really, really good.
It seemed
to
like
go
they
up
were
next
so
to
close.
Lincoln with the Patrick Mahomes Baker Mayfield matchup. It was one of the greatest games I've ever watched. And who was it? It was Lincoln, Baker, Patrick, and Cliff going head to head. Nobody else in that game mattered. It was can our receivers catch the ball and who's going to get that one defensive stop?
It seemed like they were so close all the time, like my freshman year, for instance, we started the year 5-2, and then y'all come to town. Oklahoma comes to Lubbock, and Alan Bowman was just absolutely shredding y'all in the first half. And then we run a quarterback sweep, and he gets hit at the goal line and ends up like cracking a rib and having a collapsed lung or something, and just something crazy. He comes out of the game, and from then on, y'all basically took control of the game. We had to throw Jet Duffy in there, and Kyler Murray did the rest.
What is your reaction to the news today of JT Daniels entering the transfer portal?
It's expected.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot, I think a lot of people were wondering, myself included, why he wasn't playing a lot this year. And I really think it just came down to Stetson Bennett outplaying him, being the better quarterback for Georgia, and I think that JT Daniels is a solid player, and I think that he'll find somewhere else and he'll play and probably do well. But I mean, there's got to be a reason he just sat on the bench all year when he wasn't hurt,
Right.
And obviously Stetson Bennett was just beating him out. And I think Stetson Bennett got a lot of unnecessary. Hey, you watch that national championship game? I think he showed he had what it takes, The thing about him and the thing about Georgia is offensively, Georgia's they're not built to play from behind. And in that Alabama game, the SEC championship, when they got behind, you saw them starting to try to do too much. And when they tried to do too much, they made mistakes, and Alabama made them pay for it. And that's exactly what happened in that game. That didn't happen in the national championship game. They pretty much matched Alabama score for score and didn't try to do anything except what they do as a football team.
It seemed like that game was, for 3 quarters of football, you just didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah, no,
and then it almost seemed like Georgia just took the game and ran with it. Out of nowhere, both teams came out of halftime just as fired up, ready to go and win a championship. But Georgia came out of into that fourth quarter and just said, "Hey, this is our game." You had the pick six, just great defensive balls. Alabama had some false starts that killed them, but Georgia capitalized. If it was a field goal or a pick six, they got it done.
Yep, and I think they proved that they were the better football team that night. And that's really all that matters, that they were the better football team that night. Alabama was the better football team when they played in Atlanta, but they weren't when they played in Indianapolis. So, you say what you want about Jamison Williams being out. Do I think that game may be slightly different? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
He's extremely dangerous. He's going to get drafted in the first round. But do I think it would have been enough to say that Alabama would have won? I don't know. I don't want to play that what if game. It was obviously devastating for Alabama, but you've got the Heisman winner on your team and you're Alabama. They don't rebuild, they reload.
Right.
One guy gets hurt, they just throw another 5-star out there.
Right.
And that's quite literally what they did. They put a Jai Hall out there. A Jai Hall's a 5-star. He's going to give people in the SEC headaches for the next 2 or 3 years. I promise you. He was a true freshman this year and played in like 2-3 games, I think. So
one of them being the championship.
Yes,
you got to wonder what you learned from something like that.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
I mean, you saw what Tua did getting thrown in there. That was pretty remarkable.
I know it. I always love those kinds of stories in those football games where a guy gets hurt, backup comes in. Whether it's, Jalen Hurts against Georgia in the SEC championship games a couple of years back, where he came in and Georgia had no answer for him, won him the football game. You got Tua come in, won him the football game. It's funny to see. And then just stories like that. Like when we played Alabama a couple of years ago in the Sugar Bowl, everybody counted Trevor Knight out. There was no way we were winning that game. Trevor Knight went and played the best game of his entire career and won us the game and beat Alabama with AJ McCarron. It just, stories like that are amazing. But then there's also stories where you're up by 17 and you end up losing in double overtime in the Rose Bowl. So there's not a lot.
There's two sides to every story.
There's two sides to every story, man. What state would you say produces the best D1 athletes?
Texas.
Easily.
Absolutely. Are we talking like all sports or just football? Because I can't really answer for anything.
Just football.
Football. I think it's easily Texas. Just look at all the NFL quarterbacks to start that have came out of the state of Texas, and you got like Drew Brees is the first one that comes to mind. You got Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford,
Baker Mayfield,
Kyler, from Texas, Kyler Murray, Sam Ellinger, which he's not necessarily the starter, but and then you got Kellen Mond, Ryan Tannehill. There's a bunch of them. A lot of talent comes out of the state of Texas. Everybody comes and recruits in Texas. It's like there's just an endless supply of D1 athletes in this place, and
it's crazy. It's funny when I talk to people that are in Norman that grew up in Oklahoma, their atmosphere of what a Central Texas football game in high school it would be. The atmosphere is completely different. I have a hard time explaining to people how I grew up watching high school football because it's almost better than college games.
What's it like up there, high school games in Oklahoma?
It's just different. I mean, it's not like how we grew up and just everybody in the town comes out. It's, major student sections, just people get rowdy just because Oklahoma people are Oklahoma. They can get rowdy and loud, but traditions, stuff like that, it's just not there. So it was really interesting to hear that, where it's like, I want to go to a Texas high school. Like I want to go to the state championships.
Texas high school football is different for sure. It's a statewide thing. It's something that everybody gets into, everybody, whether you're in high school or whether you graduated 30 years ago, especially in your smaller towns, you're going to see those people show up a lot of the time, if they're in the area. So it definitely means a lot more, I would say, high school football does down here than it does in other states. It's just a bigger deal. We take it more seriously.
No, for sure. It's always fun to go take your small town to Jerry World.
Well, let me just look at like some of the high school stadiums that we have in Texas, like McKinney and Allen and Katy and Cypress. Just
Midway's
is big too. I mean, stadiums that are bigger than some colleges,
Yeah.
It's insane.
High school football is just different. It's especially in Central Texas where we're from, it's honestly hard to describe. I mean, it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of yelling, a lot of talking, and you'll see some great games. Midway came back by 21 points in College Station, I believe it was, right? They won a playoff game coming back from 21 points.
I know they beat South Lake Carroll that year.
Yeah. And so it's just, if y'all have never been able to go see the state championships 1A through 6A, I'd highly recommend it because it's good football. It's fun to watch. It's a great atmosphere. So, Well, Gage, that's all I got, man. Thank you for hopping on with me and talking a little football.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Yes, sir. Well, you give them hell down there, and we'll come kick your ass when we come to the SEC in a couple of years.
Bring it on.
All righty, buddy. See you later.
I'll see you later, man.